Hey everyone, welcome back. So in this new video, I'm going to discuss a new LTF entry method, a new way to enter trades on lower time frame that I think is much more efficient and also gives us a way to judge the quality of setups rather than just blindly trading the setups. So let's get into it. So before we start diving into the new method, I want to do a quick recap of the old lower time frame entry method. So what the lower entry time frame method says is, let's assume for hypothetical reasons that this was a 3 candle fair value gap closure on a higher time frame, and then you see this forming on the lower time frame, basically a green box which was then broken by a red box, basically taking out the liquidity from over here, trading into the higher time frame three candle fair value gap, and then breaking down the market structure. So this would, in our existing lower time entry, this would be a sell setup that would pop up on discard. And the way we would set this up would be basically closing candle high to the low of the green box, and this is where we would try to anticipate an entry. And if we would set up our risk reward, this is how we would be trading this setup. Now there are several problems with this entry method, which obviously I've discovered after trading 10 plus weeks with this entry method, which is that, let me get rid of this first. This setup has one very peculiar problem, which is the problem of FOMO. So imagine the setup came to us on 12:30 UTC. So this vertical line is 12:30. When this candle finishes forming, the time is 12:30 UTC. You have to be in front of the computer. You have to take the action then right in there to set up a trade setup and enter your limit orders, something like this, where you would have your limit entry here, a sell limit order, and then our stop loss here. So you literally have no time to respond once the setup pops over, and obviously there is no warning when the setup is going to pop over, so you have to basically watch your time frame with a hawk eye all throughout the day, all throughout the week. That is a very demanding process, I'll be honest. And so you can see that there was literally no time for you to take an entry here. This is a 15-minute chart, and within the next 15 minutes, you would have practically either have taken the entry if you were fast enough to set up your limit orders here, or you would have missed your entry to get in here. So this is a very real workflow related, FOMO related problem that you just cannot ignore. The second problem with this setup is with the way we were entering on lower time frame is that there is no concept of a qualitative analysis on this setup. Does this setup look good to us? Is this weak? Is this strong? How does this compare to this setup? There is just no qualitative analysis. And when in lack of such analysis, then the decision is basically binary. Should I enter this or not? And that generally doesn't really help a lot in many ways, because when you get this setup, how do you make your decision that do you want to enter this setup or not? So to fix these two problems, I have come up with a new entry method which not only solves both of these problems, but is also based on the recent teachings from ICT, where he has shown how to use fair value gaps and order blocks to judge the quality of a setup. Now let's go back a few candles. Let's clean up the chart. Let's look at this setup. Imagine somehow imaginary this was a three candle fair value gap closure on a higher time frame, and the signal popped up like this to us. Now this signal came at 8:15. Okay, what the new lower time frame entry method says is once you get this signal, wait for a next candle to form. Let this candle to form. This one. Now, what we are going to do now is basically assess this setup, this whole setup. So the setup would have popped up on Discord with this candle, but then we wait, patiently wait, we watch the charts, we don't do anything, we wait for this candle to complete. Once this candle completes, then we start marking what are the other lower time frame on this time frame on 15 minutes, what are the elements that we see on the chart. So we have order block, 15-minute order block. We have a 15-minute rejection block, and we also have a 15-minute fair value gap, and we have yet another 15-minute fair value gap over here. So there were 4 elements that I was able to find within just this leg of the price when the price went up from here to here. Moreover, you can count the number of candles it required, the number of blue candles it required to create the breakup structure. Here it was literally 2 candles. Now this has started, if you can already imagine, this has started to give us a sense of quality for the setup as compared to the previous one. So just sticking with the technical setup for now, we are going to encapsulate all of these elements and create a trading zone. Then we are going to use our fib tool to create a discount and a premium understanding, and then we are going to reduce the setup to only encapsulate 50% of the entire range. So just to recap what I did, I first when I got the setup, when it was on this candle, I did nothing. I sat on my hands. So this is how a signal would have popped up on Discord. I did nothing. I let the next candle play out. While the next candle was forming and about to finish, I started marking what could be potential fair value gaps, what could be potential order blocks, and what could be potential rejection blocks that I see in this price leg, the price leg that started from here till here. As this candle completed, this also gave me a sense of the range. Then I drew a trade zone from the top to the bottom, encapsulating as many elements as possible, and then reduced my trade zone to be 50% of this entire range. Now once this was done, and mind you that when this candle completed, the price was still here because this was the closing price of this candle. And now you can see that when the signal came from here till I was ready to take an entry, next 15 minutes were also available to me to decide. So now I have set up my entry limit order here, my stop loss over here. I generally do not include rejection blocks in my trade zone because if the setup is strong, rejection block is most likely not going to get tested. So that means I can reduce my trade zone. That helps when I start making my 1.5 hour multiples. So once my trade zone is available to me, I basically set up my risk reward. Which will be 1.5 hour in this case. So my expectation is to get an entry here and stop loss here, take a full 1.5 hour trade over here. Let's see how this played out. Price came in, gave me a perfect entry here, and boom, full profit of 1.5 hour was hit here. Now you can see how we analyzed the setup, removed the FOMO, and created the setup to be more efficient. The efficiency in this case comes from the fact that the size of this trade zone is small enough because we are using the 50% of this range. Because had I not reduced the setup, I would have ended up taking the setup something like this. That means my 50%, my 1.5 hour in this case would be here. This is the extra amount of work my trade would need to do to give me the same amount of profit that I would need on the same setup. This is more efficient, and this removes the sense of FOMO because I don't have to act on this candle itself. I have another candle to wait for, and potentially even more, to get an entry on this setup. So this new entry method basically works on signal plus one candle. Did you see what I just did? Instead of taking my decision on this candle, I'm now taking my decisions on this candle and using the inherent lower time frame concepts of fair value gap and order block and rejection block. I was able to determine what elements are available inside this trade zone that can support the price once it comes back for a mitigation. There has to be a reason for price to come back to mitigate, because if none of these existed, then when the price came back, there was nothing for it to support. It will basically just pierce through my trade zone, and that would obviously mean a loss. Now, there are a couple of rules that I would like to share how I'm drawing these lower time frame concepts, and so let me just quickly recap them. I'm going back to one of my Notion journals just to read through, and I'll show them. So once we determine there's a breakout structure on lower time frame, we use the signal plus one candle, and then we find all LTF elements that we see in the range, which is an unmitigated order block, fair value gap, or a rejection block. Then we mark a zone that encapsulates all of these, reduce the setup to the 50% of the range, and we consider the breakup structure to be powerful if it is created using 1 to 2 candles. Anything less than 4 is good. Less than 4 means 3 is good, 4 is eh. And to validate the setup, I want to see at least 2 of these 3 to be available in the range. Of course, the more the merrier, because if you have a fair value gap like what we saw in this example, if you have we had 2 fair value gaps, 1 order block completely unmitigated and 1 rejection block completely unmitigated. So more the reasons for us to be able to trade from a particular zone, the more probability the zone will have. So now let's reevaluate this with the setup I showed in the beginning of the video. Okay, so this was the setup. Now, as per my new plan, the new LTF entry method, I would basically wait for another candle to finish. Now, once this is done, let me start marking the elements that I see within this. So we have a fair value gap here. We have a fair value gap here. and we don't have anything else. We don't have an order block. We don't, maybe we have a rejection block here. It's too small. And once we draw the zone, basically, so as price is moving forward, you draw out the 50%. That means if this was to be my trade zone, reduced to 50% would be this. That means I only have one unmitigated fair value gap in here, just one, as compared to 3 that we saw in this setup. Moreover, look at the number of candles it required and how lethargic were those candles. 1, 2, 3, 4 to create the breakup structure, as compared to just 2 energetic candles here. So in my new LTF setup, qualitative analysis, this would be a weak setup where I would considerably reduce the risk that I take on the setup, or just don't take it. Let's see what happens to price, just for our reference once again. Remember, we are expecting an entry here. This is not the entry, this is the entry. We got an entry, but then immediately price shot up. There was nothing in this trade zone to support the price other than this smaller fair value gap. And this is exactly what we want to predict, that when there are different elements, there were four elements available here to support price. There was only one element available here to support the price. And this is the way to do qualitative analysis of the setup. The number of candles required to create the breakup structure, and the number of elements you can find inside your trade zone that will support the price once the price comes back to it. So now I'm going to show you some screenshots that I took previously and walk you through the same two concepts. So when you look at the screenshots, forget what's happening on the higher time frame, focus on the lower time frame. This is the lower time frame on all screenshots, and you will start seeing a pattern forming where these are obviously strong setups, so all of these setups would have given a positive response in the trade. But what I want you to take away from this screenshot collection is that how the breakup structure, how that happens, how many elements do we find in that breakup structure. Look at how I've analyzed the 50% range, and then how price rejects from there, and then how many of them were profitable. I'll show you both weak and strong setups, so you'll have examples, and then I'll also show you some backtesting as well, and then eventually in the next video we'll do blind backtesting. So lots of things to come. Let's look at these setups first. Keep in mind these are strong setups. They are expected to work, and focus on this side. I only have screenshots to share, so please stay focused and catch up with me as I show the screenshots. You can pause the video as I'm showing different screenshots. So in this screenshot, follow my mouse please. In this screenshot, this big red candle was the breakup structure. I waited for this green candle to form, and then when this formed, I could very clearly see that there was an order block here, there was a fair value gap here. I combined the two, reduced my setup, my trade zone to 50% of this range, excluding the rejection block, and you can see this was a winner, gave me a 1.5 hour win. These setups will work on all time frames. Time is fractal in nature. This was a weak setup, I would say. Only this big blue candle created the breakup structure. It was a good energetic candle, but the next candle came and mitigated most of it. and it also mitigated this order block. So you can see there was only one fair value gap. This is a weak setup, no trade, and you can eventually see what happened. This is again a new setup where big red candle, energetic movement. The next candle could not come and overlap the previous candle, so it created a fair value gap. There was an unmitigated order block. This came down to the wire over here, but you can clearly see it was able to hold the price and reject it. Same thing here. Movement up, took out liquidity, and then sudden price displacement. Next candle could not come and fill in the gap, left a fair value gap, left an order block. Price came in, mitigated, and then gave a 1.5 hour win. Same thing. After breakup structure, there was an order block and fair value gap. Price came and rejected, gave a 1.5 hour win. In this setup, there were 3 candles required to form the breakup structure, but they were very energetic. Big, large blue candles over here. And when they finished forming, the fair value gap formed outside of the breakup structure and provided back-to-back stacked, one top of one another, lower fair value gaps. Though there was no OB here, but just the energetic movement of the candles and presence of stacked fair value gaps meant it's a good setup, and you can see gave a 1.5 hour win. This setup, the breakup structure happened on this blue candle, though there were 3 candles here. Remember, we decided 3 is okay as long as they are big energetic candles. There is no clean OB here, but there's a very clean rejection block here, and there was a fair value gap. So we created the zone and then reduced the setup to only include the elements that were inside the 50% of this entire range, which was this rejection block, and 1.5 hour win. Same thing here. Big energetic candles to break the structure, fair value gap and a rejection block. That was a 1.5 hour win. Same thing, big energetic candle, fair value gap included, and a rejection block, setup reduced to 50%, and 1.5 hour win. This was almost, you can say, a win. Price, same thing, price came in, created a big energetic breakup structure, left a order block and a fair value gap. Price came in and gave a 1.5 hour win. Same thing, big energetic candles, price left multiple lower time frame order blocks and rejection blocks. Price did not even come and retest it. You will see this fairly often, that when the move is really energetic and leaves behind lots of lower time frame elements, price might not even come back to it. Energetic move, left a fair value gap behind and an order block, and then that led to holding the price. Same thing here, big energetic move which created breakup structure, created a fair value gap and LTF order block. Price came back and it held, and 1.5 hour win. Breakup structure, left behind LTF fair value gap, order block, which held the price, 1.5 hour win. This was a very interesting example. Just 2 candles required to break the structure, left behind an order block and fair value gap, and then did not come back to retest it, but when it did, it very clearly held price, and this was a very clear 1.5 hour win. In fact, it was a 2 hour multiple win. Same thing again, 3 candles to form the breakup structure, we included the elements that were inside below the 50%, and then this was a 1.5 hour win. Same thing again, lower time frame order block left behind, which resulted in a 2 hour win. Lower time frame order block, fair value gap setup reduced to 50%, held the price very well, 1.5 hour win. 2 candle breakup structure, left behind a rejection block and a fair value gap. Price gave back and it gave entry in the next candle, 1.5 hour win. And you can see there on and on and on, just numerous examples of this thing working very well actually. I also want to show you, the picture is not entirely rosy. I also want to show you the other side of this, which is weak LTF entry setups, where you can understand and in your mind create a difference between what is strong breakup structure and what is weak breakup structure. So this first example, it might look like as if it was a strong breakup structure, but if you look closely, price lingered around here for quite a while before breaking the structure, and it had been creating liquidity at the top as well. So even though this was a decent setup, but the quality was not high because the breakup structure was not energetic. It had been sitting here. This was what, 15-minute chart, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, almost 2 hours worth of price action to create the breakup structure. So that I would call it as a weak breakup structure, which is against the rule that we just discussed, so no entry. In this example, this blue candle caused the breakup structure, but 1 2 3 4 candles required, only one lower time frame fair value gap that was already beyond the 50%, no entry, weak setup. Same thing here, the order block here is present but it is already mitigated. That means we only have one fair value gap to work with, weak setup, no trade. 1 2 3 4 5 candles required to break the structure. The order block is already mitigated. That means there's only one fair value gap to work with, no trade. This red candle caused the breakup structure, but as you can already see that it basically literally mitigated all elements present in this trade. So, and when the next candle completed, it also mitigated everything, no trade. This is a sell setup formed on this red candle, but as you can see, 1 2 3 4 5 candles required to break the structure, no trade. Plus there was no unmitigated elements. Same here, no unmitigated element. The rejection block did hold the price, but it was too close a call and it was too incidental. In this one, this red candle, this orange candle created the breakup structure, but when the next candle completed, remember we are taking the signal on the signal plus one candle, when that completed, it basically mitigated everything in the structure, so there is no reason to come back and trade this setup anymore. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 candles required to create the breakup structure, and the signal plus one candle basically mitigated everything. There's nothing unmitigated left potentially other than this rejection block, so no trade. Alright, coming back to quickly recap what we just learned in this video. We want to remove FOMO from our psychology when we look at a trade, and we wanted to do qualitative analysis on the trade, lower time frame trade setup, which wasn't available to us, at least in the previous way we were trading. So to conclude how this will work, again recapping, when the breakup structure signal is available, don't trade then, wait for the next candle to happen. So this is the signal candle. This will be the signal plus one candle that forms. Once this candle finishes forming, mark all possible structures that you see on the lower time frame inside the breakup structure. So we see a lower time frame fair value gap, we see another lower time frame fair value gap, we see a lower time frame order block, and we see a lower time frame rejection block. So there are 4 elements that are available in this zone, and you can also count the number of energetic candles that were required to break the structure. Lower the better, in this case only 2, so this is a very good setup. Then we draw our 50% range from the high to the low, where we are able to see what is the 50%. We reduce the setup to be 50%, the trade entry setup to be 50%, and then we just patiently wait to take the entry. And based on whatever risk management you use, I've started using static 1.5 hour, which is very easy to hit, but a good greater than 1 hour to bag every time in trade. You can trade accordingly with this. In the next video, I'm going to show you blind backtesting and see how that works on the signals that are popping up on Discord, and how you can use the same LTF technique in real time when you get a signal from Discord. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any feedback, please share it on the Discord channel. Take care. Bye.